Well, thank you so much. My name is Mariuxi Romero. I am based in Lebanon, and it's really a fantastic honor to be a part of this. Dr. Rula Farah, who just presented, is actually my son's oncologist, and I remember last year, she said, I hope next year you can share about your experience at the CCI. And at the time, it seemed like a very far-fetched thing to do. It didn't seem possible for many reasons. Part of it was that we were in the middle, or actually right in the beginning of a pandemic, and it didn't seem like there was much light at the end of the tunnel. But here we are, a year later. So thank you, Dr. Rula, for inviting me to take part and to share about my experience. So a little bit about me. Just so you know that I'm more than just a mom sharing her story. So I'm actually a mom of four, keeps me quite busy. I'm also an entrepreneur. I spend a lot of time in the corporate world, but in fact, 2 years ago, I became an entrepreneur with the sole purpose of driving positive impact in communities. And currently I'm quite involved with the Chance Association in Lebanon. And as you can see from the far right, my husband and I are quite much into health and fitness. We love to when we were able to go out, we would go out and go hiking, but really a love for health and trying to stay healthy. So enough about me. So this is Mateo. Mateo is my second son. He was diagnosed with CNS germinoma shortly after he turned 10 years old. In fact, he had been sick for 2 years. And so he'd been diagnosed with diabetes insipidus. He had issues with his thyroid, and it seemed culminating into his diagnosis that every month we would see a deterioration. So actually, when we finally got the MRI results in February of last year, it was horrifying, but also a relief, if you could even think of it that way. A relief because we could finally understand what had been causing all those symptoms, and we could actually look towards a solution. I think we were very lucky because Mateo's cancer is, although rare, has a very established protocol and has very good survival rates. So he underwent 4 rounds of chemotherapy and 21 sessions of radiotherapy. And after 5 months, he was declared clear. And I'm happy to share he's had already 3 follow-up MRIs and everything has been clear so far. But the story is much like all of us. So I think if we were to put this slide into maybe any meeting, whether it was today's meeting or a business meeting or anything else, I think we would all relate to this. Of course, the lockdown and physical isolation was really difficult. And I think for the first time across the world, we were all going through this. There was a high fear of contagion, of course, for COVID. Now I think a year into the pandemic, we understand a lot more, but at the time it was like every day there were new stories or new understandings about the virus. But what was very clear was that it was a highly transmissible virus and you had to take the utmost care. And of course, what we are still experiencing, we're in a virtual conference right now. We are limited to the virtual world. What used to be bumping into people on the street, into the community, having interactions, physical interactions, both for our kids and as parents and as professionals and people of the community, we no longer have that. And in fact, this has caused, I think many of you have read articles, a really sustained period of underlying anxiety and depression. And because we're grieving what we lost. So this was the base. But if you couple that with having a child diagnosed and then being treated for cancer in this environment, it created a total breakdown of your traditional support system. So in a time like this, if you would have, of course, the support of your parents, my parents who live in South America would have flown over here to Lebanon. We would have been surrounded by physical friends. and so much more. But because of the things that I just shared, and I think we can all relate to that, there is a total sense of isolation. Isolation because we're afraid of getting sick, of getting the virus. Isolation because we felt that this was the best way to keep our child safe. And so this is really, if you could capture everything I was feeling, this is it. A real sense of isolation, but also responsibility. You know, as a parent with a child with cancer, you have to face, you have to all of a sudden come to terms with information, medical information, medications, appointments. You're having to track the symptoms, the side effects, any information. It's you have to become a computer. At the same time, you have to manage the rest of your family. So it is a lot. And in a pandemic, it was probably made 10 times worse. I do have to share, it's a little bit of an anecdote. A funny anecdote now, but at the time it was really can give you a sense of how scared I was about Mateo getting sick. So we were in round 2 of our chemotherapy journey, and I would always from then on pack 2 suitcases. One was a suitcase full of clothes, and the second was full of cleaning products, because I was constantly mopping his hospital room. I was always disinfecting everything. If the nurse came in, as soon as the nurse left the room, I would be with the Dettol spray, just sterilizing, cleaning, and cleaning. So that's a little bit of that kind of almost out of control anxiety and desire to control the environment and being so scared. So if you look at it, of course, pre-COVID, you have the ability, and I think the idea is really you just want to connect, and you have access to specialists. At the very beginning of Mateo's diagnosis, I was given names of, you should see this therapist or this person, and all of this, and you get you start trying to do the information, and all of a sudden it's lockdown, it's COVID, and you are not seeing anyone but your immediate family and your oncologist and the people who you go to the hospital with for your child's chemotherapy or in radiotherapy. So all of that was, taken away. And so what you're left with is really looking for help online. Obviously, very limited access. I think now things have changed, but when we were with Mateo and his treatment, the only time you were going to a specialist was for an emergency. So there was not that kind of community and support that I think usually you would see, that you do see in places like the United States and other countries, where there is almost a holistic approach to helping a family with a child with cancer. And of course, the limited social contact, for better or for worse, you're with your spouse, and you're trying to get through it as best as you can. Because in the end, looking back, I think, and there are still parents who are, of course, unfortunately having to go through this journey of cancer with their child, is you want 4 things. You want community. You want community so that you're not alone. You want to learn. You want to vent. You want to share your anxieties. You want to understand those little anecdotes that don't get shared with you, not for any reason of bad intentions, but small things about how to help when your child doesn't want to eat, what to do when his cramping doesn't stop. You want to have access to specialists in a more holistic way, because of course, we were very fortunate. We had access to an amazing medical team, but I believe, and a survey I did with other parents here in Lebanon show that 2/3 of them would have really appreciated and really needed actually a psychosocial and emotional support, both for themselves as a parent and for their child, because it's a lot for a child to go through. And that goes hand in hand with the 3rd pillar, which is around support for your child. You want to be able for your child to connect with other patients, connect to survivors, and have a therapist perhaps to just help them know that it's going to be okay, or how to manage all the things, all the emotions that they're having and experiencing. And of course, you want that big pillar, which we used to take for granted, is family and friends. Of course, Zoom has become a great ally in all this, but this is really important. These are the four things that can help any parent tremendously during this pandemic. And so we still have the chance, to make things better. I mean, Lebanon, we're going through COVID-19 is really devastating our groups here. There's almost a total overcapacity in the healthcare system. Of course, we have the economic crisis. There's whatever you want. It's just throw it at Lebanon. But in the end, we still have the chance to make things better. It's gotten better, I think, the ability to connect with specialists. The specialists are now more comfortable doing things on Zoom. And I believe it's really important to get other parents involved. Again, I look to other countries where this has become very acceptable, to have a support group for parents and just to talk together over Zoom and things like this. We still have the chance to do that here, so that other parents do not have or experience that crushing isolation. And I think it's really nice what was said earlier in the conference around survivorship, because the treatment can be, well, in the case of Mateo, it was 5 months, but it is a long journey. Even though we have vaccines that we can see hopefully coming soon, we know that things are hopefully going to get back to normal in a few months. It's still a long journey for a family. And so I think having a support system, a strong support system, can really help it be more positive. And thank you so much. And happy Mother's Day to the people who are celebrating today. Today is Mother's Day here in Lebanon.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.